I'm doing a quick build video for Magicka Nightblade. It is a melee build, which means you can have an interesting time weaving. So for starters, this is more of a goof-off, not exactly one-shot, but meant to kill someone very quickly. You do have survivability, albeit not a lot. Your sustain is fairly low, there are a few tricks you can use to get around it, but it's not great to like spam shields. That is not your objective with this at all. Very useful in PvP. Shadowy Disguise for the guaranteed crit. That's actually really important for reasons that are probably not so obvious. Concealed Weapon. This does more damage than Strife. You could theoretically put Strife here, but it doesn't set enemies off balance. It doesn't do as much damage, and it doesn't increase your movement. Seen a lot of changes over time. If you are confident in your ability to sustain, you don't need this. However, if you don't have a VMA Resto staff and you don't have rapid regen on your back bar, I would almost require you to use this skill. The skill all that much, but I have to use it. Then we have Fear. Probably one of the best CCs in the game. It goes through block. I'm not 100% certain about dodge roll. I've had interesting encounters with it in dodge roll. I use this for perma blockers. In fact, I will often use this over the off-balance CC because it's cheaper as a whole. This is 3,000 Magicka. I'm not taking the 100 part into account. And that is 2,000. That's 5,000 total. That's the cost of Cloak. Yeah, so do the math. Then we have Rapid Regen. If you don't have a VMA Resto staff, you don't need to have this slotted. In fact, technically, you don't need to have it slotted at all. I like this skill because I have a VMA Resto staff, and it helps keep me alive. For obvious reasons, healing. But as a VMA weapon, its additional effect is that every time you crit, you will restore X amount of Magicka, and that can go up to like, I think it's 400 total into regen. So 400 regen total. It doesn't get boosted by potions. So it's not regen, it's effective regen. So that regen is really nice. It also helps keep you alive, which is great because I can do this and cloak around, and I don't have to worry quite as much about my resources as if I didn't. If you don't have a VMA Resto staff, you can totally do without this skill, and I personally suggest Mark. Or I mean not Mark, Shade. Shade is an excellent skill, gets you out of tough situations. It does take time to learn how to use. Luckily, with Dragon Bones, they finally fixed this skill. It was driving me insane, because I just started getting really good at using it, and then I broke it. You could put another defensive skill like Mirage, if you're like trying to kill people in Zergs and get out really quickly. Mirage is an excellent skill. In a 1v1, it's not that great. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but it's not as good because you don't have as much incoming damage, and this dodges like her attack, because that's how dodge works. And then you have a small resistance buff, which is nice but not perfect. Put that back. As an ultimate, I use Resto Ult as a defensive ultimate. This is just a really nice skill, even after the nerf for City that I got nerfed, I think, or was it Horns of the Reach? I can't remember. And then for front bar ultimate, I like to say it's kind of your choice. I personally prefer Soulfire Wrist. I prefer this for 2 reasons. It does more damage, and I'm going for damage. If I get the killing blow, I get 10 ultimate, that's nice. And you'll see a Salt passive of Combat Frenzy. I gain 20, so that's 30 ultimate right there. And I drink a potion, and that's 20, so I'm at 50 ultimate, which means 20 more ultimate, and I can use it again. Very quick. However, this is not as effective in PvP, because you're not getting killing blows. Now, in PvE, this is a lovely skill, and I do a lot of PvE on this character. I can do almost every role in PvE very effectively on this character, which is why you have all these little builds here, because this is my one character that I play everything on. So I use Soul Harvest, but I know people like Hina who will use Incap. For obvious reasons. That CC plus the damage debuff it gives after Incap is very powerful. Now, onto sets. This is where things get a little fun. We have Grofthar, just because I like this set, it's very solid. I would go with Zanz over this, except as I stated before, I'm very bad at getting light and heavy attacks off when I'm dual wielding. It's not something that I'm good at, so I tend to use Grofthar. This is also really good for roly-polies, because this will pull people out of stealth, and I'll hit people through dodge roll. Oddly enough, it is blockable, though. I found that out like when I was doing Battlegrounds, it's weird. For the staple set of this build, we have Legacy. Basically, it's a proc set. This set came out with Dragon Bones. It's... well, I never really played with Viper back when it was good, so I guess it's the closest thing we have to Magicka Viper. And it's a very... it's got some nice flavor to it. You launch an ice, fire, shock, or disease ball that does a fair amount of damage, and it applies a status effect. So chilled is main, which is actually what Shade gives. Fire is burning, which does some nice damage, it can be cleansed, and shock is kind of a really meh status effect in PvP. And then you have disease. Defile is really potent, especially if you have CP in the Defile. I personally do not. I do not have enough sources of Defile on any of my builds to warrant using that skill, or that CP tree, but nonetheless, it does affect your enemy, and it is really nice. All max magic enchants, as long as you have 16k health, you should be good to go. 16k health outside of Cyrodiil. I'm currently inside of Cyrodiil, so I have 22k health. This is kind of my margin. My crit resist is a bit low. That is in part because I do not have this traits. I've got Imtown on a few parts, I have Well Fitted. I actually have these 2 pieces transmuted to Well Fitted for personal reasons. I do a lot of dodging when I shouldn't. This is Divines, this is not a PvP thing. I don't have the transmute pistols to change it, and I'm not going to be using this build as often. This is just my screw around ganky build. So, now that we have the proc set out of the way, we're going with Spinners. Now, a lot of people go, okay, Spinners is a solid set. Yes, I'll give you that. But why are we using Spinners instead of something like War Maiden? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Because penetration is affected, or penetration affects proc sets. So, when penetration is applied to a target via mark, via, I have 10k penetration when I'm on my dual wield bar. That's a lot of penetration. So that proc from Brockdar and from Collyrians, I think I said that right, that damage gets boosted. And you don't get that with something like spell damage. So I also have War Mavens on this character. I carry War Mavens. It will not boost the procs at all. But it's very good for if you're doing melee Magicka Nightblade. Even ranged, I've seen some people use it very well in a ranged Magicka Nightblade, but I prefer Julianus for the extra crit. I have a infused spinner sword. I like this because it gives weapon damage, spell damage when I'm using the Berserker enchantment, which is just a nice burst. There's personal preference here. You can use Nirnhone on both, though I would not suggest it. Or you could do Sharpened on both if you're really trying to fuck up that heavy armor build, but heavy armor is less common these days, so I personally do not think it's necessary. Now as for recovery, I already said my recovery is pretty shit. I have one stamina recovery glyph. Where is it? Here it is. I have one stamina recovery glyph because I do a lot of dodge rolling, and if you're a magic build and you run out of stamina, you're fucked. You can heavy attack, because we're using dual wield, that is a benefit of this, but if I'm ganking, I want to be able to get in somewhere and dodge roll out of the way. I don't want to have to deal with all the hassle. So I have one regen. Now because I also use this in a different screw around build, my jewelry enchantments are not perfect. You should have as many of them be spell damage as you possibly and comfortably can, though I do suggest having one stamina recovery. One stamina recovery, one spell damage, and one max, not max magic, one magic recovery. That is kind of my golden combo so far. I could probably do without the recovery aspect, but because I use these exact same jewelry pieces in a different build, I do not feel it necessary to change the enchantments.